Where to start when jumping into comics? It can be very daunting since there are so many. Here at Thought Balloon, we are not just summarizing the comics, but also sharing our thoughts and opinions on what we have just covered. If there's any part of this that piques your interest and you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the video and jump right into that comic. Or you may have read the comics we're covering and just want a quick refresher. Whatever the case may be, we hope you enjoy us geeking out. Professor X, Charles Xavier, is experiencing a nightmare. The dream is a full blown space battle. Two starfleets are fighting, and Charles has experienced this dream hundreds of times. Charles finally wakes up and heads out to have breakfast, where he runs into Maura McTaggart. Maura notices that Charles is shaking, and he explains that he had the dream again, but this time stronger than ever, and he feels that he is going mad. Maura explains she will be there to help. Charles relaxes, and as dawn rises, we cut to Alex Summers Havoc, the brother of Scott, with Lorna Dane Polaris. For the last 6 months, they have been in an area called the Rio Diablo. In that time, they became a couple and lived a normal life. But as Alex heads out for his day, shortly after, Lorna is attacked and knocked out. Alex returns after hearing the commotion, but is then attacked and knocked down by what seems to be Lorna. Two people now stand over Alex and explain a plot to kill Xavier. Days later, the X-Men, minus Wolverine and Sean Cassidy, Banshee, meet with Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, at an airport to see Xavier off to his vacation. Kurt Wagner, Nightcrawler, uses an image inducer to hide his appearance, and Xavier advises Jean to make sure he doesn't treat it as a toy. As Xavier is about to leave, the X-Men are attacked by Havoc and Polaris. The duo catches the X-Men off guard and heads to destroy the plane, but Nightcrawler narrowly saves Xavier's plane. Cyclops questions his brother, but the one in charge of the attack appears. His name is Eric the Red, a callback to an earlier X-Men comic in which Cyclops went by that name. But now it seems a villain has taken the persona. Eric mind controls Havoc and Lorna to continue to fight. Eric fights with Nightcrawler and Peter Rasputin, Colossus. The fight continues but stops when Storm Lightning strikes Polaris, and Wolverine and Banshee appear after being called by Professor X, causing Eric and Havoc to head to Polaris and dip. Wolverine tells Cyclops to take the shot to take the three down, but he can't risk hurting his brother and allows them to get away. Wolverine and Cyclops argue, and then we cut to the true man in charge of the attack, Dr. Lang. Watching from a computer screen the events that had just unfolded, Lang is a villain introduced in the last video. It's Christmas in the Big Apple. The whole X-Men team is out in Midtown. Jean and Scott, Banshee and Maura are the only four enjoying the festivities. Meanwhile, the snow reminds Storm of the mountaintops of her homeland, putting her in a sad mood. Kurt and Colossus are trying their luck with some girls, and Wolverine is grumpy. Jean and Scott head inside a building where they enjoy some personal time together. But it is short-lived because Sentinels tear through the building, attacking Jean and Scott. Jean is caught off guard and kidnapped by one Sentinel while Scott destroys another. Banshee and Wolverine leap into action, and Storm goes to help Scott. Banshee has encountered Sentinels before, but none of the new X-Men have, and as Storm learns a bit about them, she summons a Storm to destroy the remaining Sentinel. Sentinels are giant mutant hunting robots, created by a previous X-Men villain, and now they're back. It's in this moment that if the Sentinels have returned, Professor X, who's now alone in his vacation, is in danger. Cut to Professor X, fishing on a small boat with his friend Dr. Peter Corbeau, but is interrupted when a Sentinel leaps out of the ocean. Xavier mind blasts the Sentinel away, but because he uses his power, it triggers the images from his nightmare. As Xavier screams from the images, a Sentinel destroys the ship and flies off with Xavier. Xavier's friend is left in the debris of the ship, waiting for help. Cut to 4 days later. Wolverine and Banshee were captured, along with Jean Grey, and are in the base of Dr. Lang. The three of them are shackled down next to Xavier, who's in a tube. Jean Grey calls Lang a Nazi for his hatred of mutants, and Lang explains why he's after the X-Men. The X-Men are the only mutant opposition, and by killing them, the rest of the mutants will fall. Wolverine heard enough and sliced his way out of the locks. Lang and his crew in the room flee. Meanwhile, Wolverine takes down a Sentinel. To Jean and Sean's surprise, they realize that Wolverine's claws are actually a part of him, not just the suit. Banshee and Wolverine suit up, and Wolverine just wants to dip and not deal with carrying Xavier out. Jean argues with him, but the two are interrupted when more Sentinels attack. The three continue to fight until too many Sentinels appear, and they realize they need to leave. As Banshee grabs the two and busts his way outside, the three are shocked to find that they are actually now in the vacuum of space. Cut to Nightcrawler asking if Cyclops has found the missing X-Men yet. Cyclops explains that Cerebro scanned the Earth multiple times and couldn't find them. As this happens, an intruder is spotted outside the mansion, and Nightcrawler teleports to stop him. But it turns out to be Professor X's friend on the boat, Dr. Peter Corbeau. Peter explains he's there to help, but Cyclops explains that there's nothing he can do since the missing X-Men haven't been found by Cerebro. But Peter has already figured it out. The missing X-Men are in space. As Banshee, Wolverine, and Jean are about to die in the vacuum of space, Sentinels manage to retrieve them. Once back inside the base, Lang explains that no matter what they do, they are stuck here. As this is happening, Dr. Peter Corbeau and the rest of the X-Men confirm that the X-Men are in space by testing the unique materials found in the Sentinels. They eventually discover that the Sentinels are in space and occupying a SHIELD orbital platform. Cut to a news broadcast of the scheduled shuttle launch of Peter Corbeau's Star Core shuttle. The broadcast explains that although there's unusual and dangerous solar activity, the launch is still continuing. Another broadcast speaks on the destruction of an anti-mutant judge's house, Robert Calmers. Then it cuts back to the shuttle launch, as the news anchor explains that although there's civil unrest, the astronauts on board are of mixed race and sex and are a symbol of peace in this time of unrest. It turns out that the astronauts are the X-Men, alongside Dr. Peter Corbeau. Storm is feeling claustrophobic in the suit and is beginning to panic. Colossus also begins to panic, turning into his metal form and destroying his suit. He explains that his brother was the first test pilot for Russia, and that the ship exploded during liftoff. The thought of his brother dying and Colossus now being on a ship sends him into a panic. He eventually calms down as much as he can, and the ship begins to lift off. Cyclops worries about Jean. Storm hates being trapped inside a ship, and Colossus still worries about his brother who had passed away. And Nightcrawler is excited about the adventure, but simultaneously worried for Colossus. As the ship launches into space, another space research station notices Peter Corbeau's ship is about to face the worst solar activity ever recorded, and tries to warn them. Back to the ship, Colossus is feeling space sickness as Nightcrawler teases him as the spaceship heads closer to Lang's space platform. We quickly cut to an event on Earth. That will be important to remember in upcoming issues. A messenger trying to get a letter off to Sean Cassidy, Banshee, reaches a post office in a blizzard. He explains that the letter is very important and needs to get to Sean ASAP. The messenger leaves the building and is now at ease since his job is done. But as he leaves the building, he is killed by Sean's cousin, Black Tom. Now back to space. Lang and his crew spot the ship approaching them, and their mutant radar goes off. Sentinels are sent to destroy the ship and a space battle ensues. The Sentinel blasts a hole in the ship, causing Storm to be sucked out. Colossus doesn't have a suit, so Dr. Peter decides to crash into the space platform to make their entrance. Storm is worried at first, but then realizes that her powers work in space. She also controls the cosmic storm and destroys the Sentinel approaching her. The Sentinel makes a noise that is destroyed, and Storm questions her morals, as it sounds so human. She wonders if she could remain an X-Men. Back on the space platform, the X-Men fight off a number of Sentinels, clear the area, and reunite with Storm. Colossus hugs Storm since he was very worried about her, and Jean mentally contacts Cyclops. Cyclops learns that Wolverine and Banshee are in a different area from Jean, so the team splits up. Dr. Corbeau joins Cyclops to help Jean. Meanwhile, the rest head for Wolverine and Banshee. Cyclops is angry, and he breaks his way into Jean's location and attacks Lang. He only stops once Jean tells him to. Cyclops is then attacked from behind. Lang reveals his true weapon, what Project Armageddon really is. And since Cyclops was attacked and knocked unconscious, Jean is about to be attacked and won't be able to warn the rest of the X-Men of the new attacker, who seem to be the original X-Men, being led by Professor X. Both groups begin to fight, Beast against Nightcrawler, and then Nightcrawler is thrown at Cyclops. Wolverine fights with Iceman and is then picked up by Angel and tossed towards Colossus. Wolverine and Colossus use their special move called the Fastball Special, which is where Colossus hurls Wolverine at a target. Havoc attacks Colossus, where Colossus overpowers Havoc's beams. Storm is fighting both Marvel Girl and Polaris, but is then beaten. Banshee and Colossus step in to help. Wolverine then goes after Professor X, but is then attacked by Marvel Girl. Wolverine at this point has figured out the situation due to his heightened senses and goes for a killing blow at Marvel Girl. Everyone is shocked that Wolverine just killed Jean, but it is revealed that the imposters are actually robots. Lang, who's been watching from a screen, is furious. The robots are the new model in Sentinel technology and should have been capable of easily killing the X-Men. Lang goes on a rant about how the government started the original Project Armageddon to control mutant kind. But when Lang took over, he wanted to kill all mutants. Cyclops has heard enough and blasts his way out, freeing Xavier and Jean. Lang runs and enters a small ship and starts to shoot at Cyclops. As this happens, the X-Men and the X-Sentinels fight on screen, and Lang watches as his robots are all destroyed. Jean mind probes Lang, and he loses control of his ship and crashes into the screen, causing a big explosion. The whole X-Men team reunites and heads to escape before the whole base explodes. When they get back to the ship, they find that they are screwed. Dr. Corbeau explains that the ship's computers are destroyed, and it could only be flown in manual mode. But in order to do that, whoever flies must be able to withstand the solar activity because the ship has a giant hole. Nobody can do it until Jean steps up and scans the mind of Dr. Corbeau to gain the knowledge to fly the ship. Cyclops intervenes and tries to stop Jean from doing this since he knows that it's too dangerous. Jean uses her powers to knock him out, and Wolverine tries to interject, but Jean shuts him up by saying she is more than capable of doing this. Storm then steps up to Jean and, instead of trying to stop her, wishes her good luck, and the two say goodbye. Now Jean must do her job. She uses her power to make a telekinetic shield around the hole, which she flies the ship away. As she flies the ship away, the solar flare is approaching. Cyclops awakens, and it takes Nightcrawler and Colossus to hold him down. Jean explains that all she needs to do is hold off for 27 minutes until she reaches Earth, but is causing a huge strain on her abilities. She is trying her best to maintain her shield from the solar flare and its radiation, but it seems that the flare was too strong. The ship makes it back to Earth. The X-Men are okay. But did Jean make it? The ship crashes onto a runway and then skids into the bay. The X-Men swim to the surface, all checking if everyone made it out. As they question the whereabouts of Jean, she flies out of the water. She explains that she is now Phoenix. Her new rush of power makes her too tired, and she falls into the water, where Cyclops grabs her, and the whole team swims ashore. They use their powers to transform their costumes into their normal outfits. Professor X uses his mental power to make people forget they were there. Dr. Corbeau is written as the sole survivor of the trip. Wolverine is getting flowers for Jean and heads to the hospital she's staying at. Wolverine wants Jean, and he explains to himself that he's never felt like this before, and that Jean is special. When he opens the door to her waiting room, he's shocked to find that all the X-Men are present, so he tosses the flowers away and returns to his grumpy Wolverine demeanor. All the X-Men are worried that the state of Jean is unknown. Professor X can't provide any help since his power causes him to relive his nightmare. Cyclops questions his role as an X-Men. All that time he could have spent being with Jean. As he continues to question his role, the doctor enters the room and explains that Jean is okay, and the whole team celebrates. Scott goes to a different room and is relieved Jean is okay. Professor X says that he has something important to say. The X-Men are forced to go on a vacation. Meanwhile, Scott and Xavier will watch over Jean. Wolverine hates that. He's being forced to take time off. And while the group thinks about where they are going to go, Sean brings up an idea. Sean's lawyers sent him a letter stating that he has inherited his ancestral home back in his home country, Ireland. The group agrees that it'll be their vacation, and the X-Men head off. At first, the X-Men were kind of upset that they were sent to do nothing, but eventually they look forward to having the time off. And now Sean drives the group to his family's castle, which was built 1,000 years ago to fend off Viking raids. The group is shocked by the large estate, but inside, someone is watching from the cameras as the X-Men enter the castle and forces the butler, Mr. O'Donnell, to betray Sean. The man calling the shots is Tom Cassidy, Sean's cousin. Sean shows the group around and to their rooms. Storm enters her room and doesn't like the vibe of the castle. She summons a small Storm to take a shower, helping to put herself at ease. Then she gets ready for the night. Once she is dressed, Nightcrawler enters to escort her to dinner. Kurt changes his appearance using his gadget to also appear dressed up, and Storm reveals her outfit for the night. Nightcrawler compliments Storm as they walk to meet the others. Meanwhile, all the others are also dressed up, and Sean explains that he feels that something is wrong in the castle, but he doesn't know what. All the X-Men now head to dinner. Peter and Kurt are both trying to win over Storm, and as the group continues to walk, they fall into a trap door. All transform into their costumes. And now, as they stand in front of Tom Cassidy, Black Tom, He explains that he and his new partner will kill the X-Men. His partner is the Juggernaut, an old X-Men villain, and one of the strongest they have ever faced. As this happens, the closed space has triggered Storm's claustrophobia once again, and she begins to panic.
Hey everyone, I'm Nate.
And I'm Aiden.
And Aiden, what did you think about these issues that we just covered?
A lot more action in these issues than the
Yeah.
last few.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need to spend so much time setting up the
The
new
team.
premise of the story.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about the art in the last discussion, but the artwork in this one's amazing as well. I think the ink this I didn't really mention the inks in the last episode, but the inks in this one are really good where they like create these really dark shadows
Yeah.
on the characters, and it really makes the rest of the image pop out.
Yeah.
But story-wise, I like what they're doing. I think this kind of introduces a new thing for Professor X being able to like I don't know if you would call it being able to see the future, but like sense the future.
What do you mean?
Because he gets visions of the space battle in the beginning of the comic, and then it comes to fruition later
Oh,
on. So it's like
let
it's
me
not that he can just like read minds anymore, but more like
let me
sense
let me explain
impending
that.
doom.
Um, he didn't see the space battle. Um, he saw a different space battle. Um,
Oh, what do you mean?
so if you look at the images again in those comics, I'll bring them up right now, and you'll see that the next video and upcoming issues will go more into the nightmare that Xavier is experiencing. But if you notice that it's not exactly what we're seeing right now, it's much more, the ships look much more alien.
Huh.
I don't want to spoil anything, but um, yeah, the first time I was reading it too, I thought it was going to be something like that, where it was referencing what's going to happen in the same issue. But you do just have to hold off for about 2 more issues. Next video would definitely cover it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. I thought it was gonna be just some like, oh, I can sense the future. That would kind of take away from a lot of tension if Professor X could
Yeah.
just like be able to tell what was going on right away.
There's another X-Men character, not X-Men character, X-Men villain that is introduced later who does have that could see the future. And she's constantly written in a way where it's like, can you even see the future? Because um the the plot would be over. So I definitely think that, yeah, you see that way later, but it's like where you said,
You
it's
have to
just
walk a fine line.
yeah, um, because it's just like, well, if you can see the future, plot's over. They figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about in this one, which we discussed a little bit in the last video, we talked about Stanley writing compared to the new writing. I'll put up the image now, what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So there's a part during the Christmas issue, and it's like the second page, where Jean and Scott are having like a little nice, like, oh, like we're back being a couple. It's all lovey dovey, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and it cuts away real quick to actually show Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in that comic, and it's followed right after Jean and Scott just kissed. He's like, "Oh, these new youngsters really like this type of stuff, don't they, Jack?" Or something
What
along
the
those
heck?
lines. And it's just, I thought it was really funny because we were just discussing how in last video, Stanley being like the part of that first generation of comics, writing it very like, I don't know, the characters aren't, they don't feel alive. And now these new characters, or sorry, the new writers like Claremont coming in and having an actual relationship and them actually talking and kissing. and then having Stan Lee be there being like, what are they doing? Like, I thought it was really funny the first time I read it. I had a double take because I was like, is that what it's referencing? I thought that was pretty
They're like
funny.
breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, a little bit. They do it a lot too. I try to mention it in future videos because Stan Lee does come back a couple times, which I
Hmm.
wonder if this is where they took the cameos from, the idea, you know what I mean, in the Marvel
I could
movies.
see that. Yeah.
Because he does show up a good bit where it's just like they don't say it one for one like that's Stan Lee. They would just say like Stan, or he's like, "Hey, Jack," and he's talking to Jack Kirby, and but it just happens to look like them. I don't know. I think maybe that's where the idea of those cameos of Stanley being Stanley came from. But I thought it was funny that we were just discussing about the difference in writing, and they mention it directly in one of the issues.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if that's where the movies were inspired to like have all these cameos for.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that I like, especially in that Christmas one where it starts, and we'll see it too as we continue these videos. But I love the X-Men just being like a group doing stuff. Um, I like that it's not always just adventures. I just like
Yeah,
I like that them them just hanging out.
yeah, you get to see the downtime.
Yeah, they do it. They don't really do it too much in these upcoming videos and issues, but just because it's just constant action, action, action. It is until like a little bit later where we get some downtime and it's just them just goofing around. But you really get to see the character dynamics between all of them. And it just really goes into like these people are people and they have their own personality. And like later down the line, Colossus, it's introduced that Colossus is a painter. That's what he likes to do in his free time. A little spoiler. But it's stuff like that. Like Storm tends to her garden, and it's just I love that type of stuff. And I feel like it's a lot of the stuff that was missing in the movies and especially the shows too, just because it is like catered more towards action.
Yeah,
Um, Especially just like down the line too, when the New Mutants are introduced, the school becomes a school again. It's just like stuff like that where I really like, and it's like the first glimpse of that in just that little segment of the comic. But then it jumps into the space, and after this next issue, or sorry, the next video, the X Men don't really get a break. They go to space, they come back, they have to fight Juggernaut, which is really cool. Here's a little fun thing. When I first watched Deadpool 2, you've seen that one, right?
yeah, I've seen it.
I thought it was really weird, some of the references they were making. It wasn't until I read these comics and also, just like other YouTube video breakdowns in general. Um, this issue is actually what Deadpool 2 was referencing. Um, if you remember, Cable in that movie kills
Hmm.
uh, Tom, and Deadpool's bit is that you killed Black Tom and calls him a racist. That's this Black Tom. Um,
Oh,
yeah, and
yeah, I didn't get that.
And the reason why they brought that in is because this issue, the where we ended the video, and the next upcoming issue are really famous because they bring back the Juggernaut, and he has to fight the new X-Men team, which the more famous X-Men team, and so that's what that bit in Deadpool is referencing. And I thought that was really cool because I was reading it and I was like, isn't Black Tom the same one in that movie? I thought that was really cool. But
Yeah,
it's a lot of cool things like this. I'll also try to mention any of these like funny bits that like in the X-Men movies where it's like, hey, this is actually referencing this issue. I try my best. There's just a lot, but I thought that was really, really cool.
to go back to what you were saying about getting to see them in their downtime, I was always drawn to like Teen Titans as a kid because of that. I like seeing
Yeah.
them use their powers outside of like combat.
Hmm.
So seeing Storm like water her garden and stuff, and
Yeah,
I think with Colossus, it's interesting that he has a hobby that's like so counter to
yeah.
his
To his powers.
brutish ability of
Hmm.
like just being being strong. And here he's like painting something delicately.
Yeah,
I
you'll
like
see
that
that.
because it
Yeah,
gives you another side of the character.
yeah, and like I said, that's little spoilers, but we'll see it in upcoming videos. They just really go into detail with that stuff, and it's just so good. It's really really good. Um, the New Mutants goes into that a lot. That's a whole. I don't know. Maybe we do videos on that too. That's a whole different series, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm
there's a
down.
lot of action in those. But because they're teenagers, it's kind of like what you're saying with the Teen Titans. They use their
Yeah.
powers for teenager stuff, Magic teleports the group to like a movie theater, and it's stuff like that where it's just like this is so cool. Um, but it isn't until when I want to say it is until the X-Men starts introducing that stuff when they're able to slow down in the story. Um, I think this is one of my biggest critiques in these older comics is that the pacing is a little up and down in my opinion. Um,
Hmm.
like one issue we just had the X-Men coming back from space, and then the next issue it ends off with them about to fight Juggernaut. Um, there is no moment in between those like arcs of like peace. It isn't
Yeah.
until down the line where I feel like they just have full faith in the writing and the story where they're like, just take your time and just tell the story because then these like two issue honestly sometimes like these early issues it's only one issue story arcs then get stretched into like five four, you know what I mean, like
Hmm.
way bigger arcs. And yeah, it's like some people may not like the arc and but you have to like deal with it now for much longer, but it is also just like those stories are now fleshed out fully and then you get time
Right.
in between. And I think these early issues kind of like they don't have that, and so it's a little more like whoa, like let me slow down, like you physically have to slow down reading because it's just a lot. um,
Yeah. It's unfortunate then.
yeah, when when the arcs are like in full gear it's really good. next video is going to be Next video is going to be a lot, but that one's going to be really really cool. I don't want to spoil
Hell yeah.
anything, but it goes into a lot of stuff.
All right. I'm excited.